The Ghoul was a 1933 Universal monster movie starring Boris Karloff. It's an interesting backstory to this one. I found it on the Internet Archive, a very old, choppy version of the film. And apparently the story is that this film had been all but forgotten by history. And it was filmed in the 1930s. It was lost. And then apparently sometime in the 1980s, there were workers who were clearing a soundstage at Shepperton Studios in England. They were going through some old sets and old stuff, and they found a door blocked behind some garbage. And when they cleared it, they found a forgotten film vault, one that hadn't been used since the 1930s. And they looked through it, and among some of the old films, there was this original nitrate camera negative of this movie, The Ghoul, in perfect condition. And, I don't really understand the whole system with the circulation, but they made some prints, I think. It circulated for a while as a bootleg and then finally got a VHS release from MGM. So it's got an interesting story to it. But all that to say, it's probably not my favorite of the Universal monster movies, per se. Yes, it has Boris Karloff. Yes, he has some great makeup. But honestly, it's kind of a brief, shadowy, not one of my favorites. It's entertaining enough to watch and check it out, if only for Boris Karloff, who sadly doesn't have enough screen time in this movie. So to kind of get into the story, Boris Karloff, he's basically this old, crazy, disfigured guy who believes in the ancient Egyptian gods, and he dies insisting that he have this Egyptian amulet in his hand, all bound up and stuff. And just a side note, as I've learned from films like, Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, you don't go messing around with these ancient Egyptian amulets, okay? They just result in trouble. So, anyhow, Boris Karloff dies. He gets buried away in this Egyptian-style tomb, but we're not in Egypt at all. I think we're somewhere in London. But anyhow, he's in his tomb. He's got the big sarcophagus and everything, but wouldn't you know it, some knuckleheads come along and try to steal his amulet. So basically that works to reanimate him, and he goes off on a killing spree to track him down and kill him. And just a note, he's not really a mummy here. So he doesn't have the bandages and the tapes and everything. He's just this seriously creepy looking guy wearing a shirt and slacks and has epic eyebrows. And he basically spends a lot of the time just quietly moving through the shadows, moving through a house, moving here, moving there, looking for his amulet. And I try to be understanding of these old films, but this one did kind of drag considerably, considering that it's at least about 40 to 45 minutes into the film before his monster first appears. So there's a lot of stuff kind of dragging along with the subplot. There's Dorothy Hyson and Anthony Bushell, who play the romantic couple, and we barely get to know them in the 1 hour of this film. You also have Cedric Hardwicke, who plays a lawyer, and Ralph Richardson, who plays a fake vicar. And Kathleen Harrison plays this silly character. At one point, she has the amulet, and she found it and threatens to throw it down a well to, for whatever reason. And it was cool to see Ernest Feisiger, probably saying his name wrong, but this was the crazy guy, the crazy doctor from Bride of Frankenstein. And it was neat to see him here. He plays a kind of a crazy servant, not the mad scientist, but he still kind of has that crazed look to his face. It's another one of those things, the film was only an hour long. I would have loved to see more of his character, more of the monster, more of the story, but it just seemed kind of rushed. Possibly the copy I saw was a cropped version, and so again, it's not the greatest of the Universal monster movies, but it's brief and interesting, and Boris Karloff is, of course, awesome whenever he steps into any kind of a monster role, no matter how goofy it might be. But again, the biggest negative is there's just not enough of him in this film, and that really would have helped because it was a tad dry until his monster shows up, about 40 minutes into the film, and then by then, we've only got, a bit of the film left, and then it's over. So interesting, about the backstory, about how this was a lost movie they found, they recirculated, and, it's worth checking out. It's not the greatest, but Boris Karloff is awesome all the time. So this was The Ghoul from 1933.